Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Conversations with Cogee. Welcome back to the second hour. Alzheimer's. You think you know, you have no ideas. The title of the show today. And let me do this, coming out the gate. Today's show is very, very powerful. I mean, the information in the first hour was great. We had Miss Demeter Smith that was in, right now. She's still in with us right now. And we had Miss Florence Fisher, who was in telling her story about her mom. So, Demeter, what do you think about the first hour?
I think it was wonderful. I think it was very informative. I'm really appreciative that I had the opportunity to talk with Miss Fisher, going across the other side of the country to talk to someone, finding out that there is a need that way too. I'm hoping that I gave some good information to her that she might be able to use.
You did. You want to give them the name of your facility again and how you can be found?
It is Ohana Adult Care, and we're located at 1566 Mount Hood Street, Las Vegas, 89110. I can be reached at 702-335-9467. That's 702-335-9467. You can also contact me by email at www.ohanaadultcare.com is the website, and my email is ohanads@aol.com.
Okay, there it is. Miss Peaches.
Yes, Coach.
What do you think about that first hour?
Oh, well, I think that Ms. Demeter did an awesome job giving information and helping flow from, and it's just hard to hear somebody that I know you care about, just frustrated and feeling like she can't trust anybody and can't get the help that she needs. So I really hope that this show changed her life and her mother's life, and that she can really move on from here and do what's best.
Right. And now let me ask you something, Ms. Peaches, real quick, and then we're going to keep it moving. What is something in this show so far that you heard that's like devastated you and made you really think about family members and different people?
Well, I think what I didn't know was that the destruction, and it's so long and drawn out, but that the disease takes your ability when it was a clip where it was Miss Amita that said that you don't know if you have to go to the bathroom. You can't express that you need to eat. I mean, that really hurt me to hear that Alzheimer's truly does take a person all the way back down to a baby. Right. And the person that's taking care of them, and why it's so important that there's more people and facilities that really have that passion, like your guest today, is that they have to have that heart and that passion to really care for the person as if they were an infant and really think for them.
Right. I hear you. Big Blaze.
Yes, sir.
What's up, buddy?
What's going on, man? How you been?
All right. What do you think about that first hour?
That first hour was pretty deep, man. It's a big reminder of all the different family situations that I had going on, and it's also a reminder that you gotta love your loved ones. You can't forget about them, even if it may seem as though they've forgotten about you. I think that when it comes down to something, it's almost like a period where you grow into an adult, and then you go from an adult back down to an infant. You have to take care of that person. If you got love for any child, any person, any human being, you'll realize how important it is to look after your family when they're in their most critical hour. Right. And a lot of times, especially with elderly, they do get forgotten. One of the ladies in the first hour brought it up and hit it right on the nose. They do get oftentimes forgotten about once they get put in those homes, because the family just figures, okay, well, he's taken care of now, so they start seeing him less and less, and they don't realize that person is still deteriorating in there.
That's right. You're definitely right. Great information, my brother. Great information. So everybody check us out. I want y'all to get ready. We're going to take a break for a minute. Y'all know how we do it. We're coming back with Robert G. Bernstein. And let me tell you something. He's the author of What They Don't Tell You About Alzheimer's. You don't want to miss this information with this guy right here. I'm telling you. He's going to bring some deep information. Get your pens and your paper ready and get ready to get knowledge, baby. We're going to school on Conversations with Cogee. So we'll be right back. All right? Don't touch that dial. Hey, we back, everybody. Welcome back to Conversations with Cogee. I'm your host, Cogee. Let me tell you something today. Title of the show, Alzheimer's. You think you know, you have no idea. And we are seeing that and hearing that through the show, through proof of evidence, the websites we told y'all to go to. Y'all seeing this is a rough situation. This is like a mental prison. And once these people get in it, they don't even know they in it. So we got to reach out and really help them get through it to deliver them through this as easy as possible. And that's what I'm stressing today. Love, patience, and a lot of prayers. You know what I'm saying? Am I right, Demita?
Oh, yes. Oh, most definitely.
Right. But you know what? Let me say this real quick, Demita. Let people know who all goes through this, and nobody is immune to this disease. Can you read that for me, please?
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. Not anyone is immune to the disease. As we know, Ronald Reagan, our president, our 40th president, he had Alzheimer's disease and ultimately died from it. His mother and brother also died from it. Rosa Parks, civil rights activist, she had Alzheimer's. Benjamin O. Davis Jr., he was the first black general of the U.S. Air Force, which helps to go along with the proof that you can be super intelligent.
That's right.
And have this disease. Rita Hayworth, actress, had it. Sugar Ray Robinson, the boxing champion, had it. Joseph Sadler, boxer, had it. And Floyd Patterson, heavyweight boxing champion, all suffered from the disease. And it affects so many other people, as we know. It's just like wildfire.
Right.
No one's immune.
Right.
Anybody. Social standard, whatever. It affects any and everybody.
And there it is, everybody. You see what I'm saying? Nobody's immune to it. Miss Peaches, we got a great guest coming up right now. Can you let people know about him and how great he is?
Cogee, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, I am sorry about that. I am having a little bit of difficulty, Cogee. I'm sorry. If you could just give me 2 seconds and I'll have that information for you.
Okay, and what I can do real quick, let me ask you this real quick. I had asked you during a break, Demita, is this kind of like somewhat of what Muhammad Ali has?
I would say that,
even though they say it's Parkinson's?
I would say that, in my personal opinion, again, I'm not a physician, but in my personal opinion, I would say that he probably has some dementia. I mean, you can't take that much trauma to the head, first of all. And there is Parkinson-induced dementia.
Okay.
So I would be willing to say that he probably does have some type little spaces of dementia that are part of his medical makeup.
Right.
Just through the Parkinson's in and of itself.
But quick as possible, how do they separate Parkinson's with Alzheimer's? How do they divide them when they both seem like they give people the same motor skills? To me, I don't know personally, but from what I see, they basically kind of go through the same thing. Am I right or wrong?
They kind of do go through the same thing. They both have a loss of motor skills. They both have speech that's affected by the disease. Some of them have memory issues. Some of them have issues with having time differences where they can't sleep at night and they're up during the day. People with Parkinson's suffer some of the exact same things. I think that it has to be diagnosed through going and having MRIs and having the doctor look at the brain itself, because, it used to be that the only way you could really diagnose Alzheimer's was after the person had expired, because you could do a good workup of the brain itself. But now with all this advanced medicine, these MRIs and scans and stuff, right, you can actually see where the cells have passed and they can make the diagnosis better.
Okay, there it is. Miss Peaches, you ready?
Yes, I'm ready for you, Cogee.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, we have Mr. Robert G. Bernstein. His AKA BG is a former executive fundraiser turned professional boat captain. He has worked as a commercial fisherman, charter boat captain, and captain for hire for over 30 years. His technical marine articles, columns, short stories, and features have appeared in magazines and books since 1987. The novellas Beneath Cold Seas and Motherlode, first serialized in Offshore magazine in 1992, are now available at Amazon's Kindle store, as is Bernstein's memoir, What They Don't Tell You About Alzheimer's, an informative and heartfelt story about taking care of a mother with Alzheimer's disease. What They Don't Tell You About Alzheimer's held the top 2 spots on Amazon's top 100 Kindle books on aging for over 7 weeks and rose to the top 25 on Amazon's top 10 100 memoirs. So we'd like to welcome Mr. BG.
Mr. BG Bernstein, how you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thanks for this program. I can't thank you enough for this program. It's exactly what people need to hear.
Thank you, sir. And you know what? The title of the show is Alzheimer's. You think you know, you have no idea. Can you finish that up for me?
Oh my God! I mean, that was me, and that was really the reason why I kind of wrote this book. It's not something that I wanted to do or set out to do. It was just over the years of caring for my mother and being part of her decline and watching that and being frustrated with the type of care that we can provide, being angry really at not being prepared for what eventually happened, that made me want to write it. And that was me. I thought, okay, Alzheimer's, it's about forgetting things, maybe forgetting how to drive, forgetting how to to wash your clothes, putting the turkey in the washing machine. And, I thought it was all that. I didn't realize that there was so much more to it, and so it had such an insidious side to it.
Right. And what is something about the disease that, you went through watching, your family member go through it, that just blew you away, that you had no idea about, that shook you up the most?
Well, I guess that shook me up the most, I would say, and what shook me up the most was the physical part of it. When my mother went through about 10 years of from the diagnosis to when she finally passed this last October, and the worst of it was the last 6 months. And in that time, she developed these muscle contractions and these spasms. And so she was racked with a physical kind of thing that just went on and on and on. And there was no relief from that. And I was very frustrated because, you want to do something. You want to find some relief for your loved one, and there really isn't anything, other than pain medication. And this kind of thing that happens, you mentioned Parkinson's, and you mentioned these other diseases and things that can happen to you that mimic each other, and that is just so true. And trying to figure out what it is that's going on and then trying to treat it, it's very difficult and very frustrating. And I would say that, for me, that was the hardest, is seeing my mother in that much pain for so long.
Right. Now, let me ask you about the medication. And we got Miss Demita right here with us, Demita Smith. And I just want to ask you about the medication real quick before we get into our story and do what we do. Does the medication just medicate them and keep them in one state of mind, or do you feel the medication really works? But once the body gets immune to the medication, then what?
Well, that's exactly true. I mean, I'm not a doctor, and I can't speak pharmacologically or medically about what happens between the medicine and the patient. But in this case, you're dealing with a patient whose mental capacity, whose brain function, and everything else that's going on is constantly changing. So to try and match medicine to a person that is going through this kind of thing is actually very difficult. And I can think of at least one case where my mother was on one medicine that helped for about 2 weeks. But then after her body became accustomed to that medicine, it did just the opposite than what it was supposed to. In other words, it helped to reduce the spasms for about 2 weeks. And then after 2 weeks, when her body became used to it, it actually made the spasms worse. So we were constantly trying to fiddle around with medicine, and she had very good medical care, excellent medical care, and yet still it failed to produce the results.
Wow. Ms. Peaches, chime in.
I think that is an issue that we all have dealt with so many different diseases and medical issues with family members, where it's one medicine and then it's not working, or it changes them completely, and they keep trying new stuff. And that's just a really sad, hard road to not only be suffering from the disease, but then you suffer from what's happening at the doctor's office and with your medication. And I just hope with you, Cogee, doing shows like this on awareness and more people researching, that we can try to prevent more of that from happening.
Okay, all right, we'll move on. But Ms. Peaches, I want to ask you something. With this whole situation, how do you think a young person is really dealing with this? I mean, what do you think they go through from you just hearing it?
Well, there are, and Demita can answer on that as well, but I know that there are some cases of younger people that do go through Alzheimer's, but for a young person that, say, is watching their grandparent go through that, or even a child, it'd be hard to understand that the person you love so much, and you're looking into their eyes, and you feel their soul and heart, but they don't remember you, and they don't remember the things that you've done. They don't remember maybe vacations that you've been on or things that they've taught you. And then this little person is looking like, I have to show Grandma, or try to show Grandma again what she showed me.
You're absolutely right. One of the things that I need to get close to the mic. One of the things that I've seen happen with some of the children, and I'm sure Mr. Bernstein can attest to this, is that you have to almost step into the role, not almost, you step into the role of the parent, the person that's been caring for you for so long and providing for you and been this great big tower of strength and support for you, has been taken and turned into something so small and something so helpless. So you have to step right into those shoes and be the parent. And it's so difficult for the family members that I have come in contact with to step into that role and now parent their parent and take on all those responsibilities for their parent, making sure the meds are right, because the body changes, and as the cells in the brain start to deteriorate and die, maybe the medicines aren't working because the brain just doesn't have the capacity to make them work anymore, and dealing with the side effects. You know, you got one medicine that's controlling the outbursts or the agitation, but then it keeps you up all night, or it's causing the shuffling of the gait and things like that. And so you have to have this tight niche with your doctor to just keep everything regulated, and that's so stressful when you're the child of the person suffering with the disease. So my heart goes out to everyone that is in that role. I personally have never had to have that come into my life that way on a parental level, but just being the caretaker and the person owning the facility that does that type of care, I know that it is very stressful on a young person.
Okay, there it is. Robert, let me ask you this. What made you really get to the point when you wrote this book to where you was like, I got to dump this out of my head, I got to get it on paper, but I want the world to know? And how soothing was it to your soul once you done it?
Well, that's funny. You know, people ask me that. You know, they say, oh, it must have been a really purging, cathartic experience to write this book. But in fact, I was sort of an out-of-body experience. You know, there were notes I was making to myself to keep track of my mother's meds and what have you over the course of a few months, and then after she passed away, it just kind of poured out of me, and I was sort of a dissociative process. I wasn't really thinking about it all that much. And then, you know, somebody told me about Amazon and the self-publishing arm of Amazon, and I said, well, what the heck? I'm gonna put it on there, and I did. And then what happened after that was people started reading it and sending me these emails and posting reviews and posting messages on my Facebook page, and suddenly it was like, then all of a sudden, you know, the emotion came out, because suddenly people were saying, you know, well, I didn't think anybody understood how I felt when I went through it, but now I know that somebody understood what I was going through, and which they were saying something that to make me feel good. I don't think they realized how much what a difference it made to me, because suddenly I was like feeling all this emotion from all these other people that were coming out of the woodwork saying, oh yeah, that's what happened to me, that's the way I felt, and that's when it hit me that you know, something really good had happened, you know. Right.
I hear you. Let me ask you this: for all the people out there who's you know, caretakers for people with Alzheimer's, how much of a strain, you know, how much of a strain do people go through dealing with this situation that people have no idea about?
Well, I think that, you know, I mean, there are people who care for their husbands, wives, mothers, fathers, even more than I did. I mean, I was involved with my mother's care for about 15 years, but she went into residential care at one point, and she went into nursing home care for the last 2 years of her life. But there are people who do this in their own homes and care for their loved one themselves, or with a group, you know, of family members, and it's really, really difficult. I mean, that first moment, really, when you realize that the person with Alzheimer's no longer recognizes you, is very, very hard.
Right.
Each little point that you have to pass in the whole process is very hard. It takes its toll, and it's really important, I think, for caregivers and family members, you know, to do whatever it is they have to do to you know, for themselves, to keep healthy both physically and mentally, because they're the ones responsible for caring for this person, and yet if they're not healthy, then they can't do what they're supposed to do or what they want to do, you know?
Right. Is it possible for one person to care for a person with Alzheimer's disease?
Well, you know, in my case, it wasn't. But every situation, I think, is different. And I actually heard, after I wrote the book, I was contacted by a guy in London who cared for his mother all by himself, pretty much. And, you know, he's a professional educator, and he took the time off to care for his mother. Now, she didn't have Alzheimer's. She had dementia. And he also wrote a book. And I got to tell you, you know, he was a real soldier. I could not do that because my mother would not have wanted me to do it, and that's an important aspect to this. I mean, I had it in me. I would have tried, but she would not have wanted me to do that.
Okay.
In his case, his mother was very accepting of that, and he did it. But I'm telling you, it was a heroic, soldierly thing that he did. And so I would say, yes, it is possible for one person to do it, but I would never have believed it had I not met this guy. You know, never.
Right. And you know what, I want to ask you one more thing before we go to a break, and I want everybody just to stay tuned because what I'm going to ask him is something really deep, and then we're coming back in with more great information. How important is it to cherish that time you have with that person, you know, as you caregiving them and being there in their life? How important is that?
It's everything, Cogee. It's absolutely everything. You know, I mean, it's a very frustrating and difficult thing to do, to care for somebody with Alzheimer's or severe dementia. Very difficult. It's frustrating, and sometimes you get angry, you know. You get angry because, you know, people can be irate, and they can be difficult sometimes. They can be combatant other times. And yet, you know, this isn't them. This is the Alzheimer's world that you're dealing with. It's not really them. They don't want to be like this. It's just happening, you know.
Right.
And so it reminds you that, oh my God, every moment, particularly before, you know, and that's why the show is so important, because if you know that this could happen, then when you're with your loved ones, you can kind of keep it in the back of your head and you say, you know, I don't want to ever do anything that I'm going to have to regret later.
That's
because
right.
It'll be too late to apologize or to make it right.
That's right. So the point we making today is don't miss your life, right or wrong.
Right.
There it is. So check us out, everybody. Y'all listening to Conversations with Cogee. We'll be right back. Hey, title of the show today, Alzheimer's. You think you know, you have no idea. But let me tell you something. We're going to bring the point today. We're going to bring the love, and we're going to bring the happiness, all right? So take this information in, and let's run with it to something great. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Conversations with Cogee, everybody. We're in the house right now. Ooh, this Alzheimer's is deep. It's really deep. Miss Peaches, what you think about this show today?
I think there are a lot of diseases that are focused on frequently, and there are a lot of people out there doing their best to help in that regard. Mm-hmm. And I think today is so important because a whole floodlight's been shown on Alzheimer's, not for the people who are currently going through it and know, but for the ones that don't have any idea that it was such a struggle and so destructive for families.
That's right. That's really deep. It's hard for me to talk about it because I'm picturing people that I really love and care about, you know what I'm saying, and family members and distant family members, you know what I'm saying, that I didn't play, you know, with their father and laughed and talked to him, and then I see him again, and, you know, you don't even know who I am, you know what I'm saying, and it's really deep when you really love and care about somebody, you know?
Yep, and you kiss them and you hug them, and they just are kind of like, okay, I don't really know who you are, but thanks anyway, you know, and that's what hurts. Right.
And we got, you know, author in Mr. Robert Bernstein of what they don't tell you about Alzheimer's.
He's doing a great job.
And he's doing a great job, definitely. So you, Robert.
Yes.
What do you think about the show so far and the information we're given? I mean, is it anything that you feel we kind of overlooked, you know, right now that you want to bring us up to speed on that you think people should know?
Well, I mean, I'm like I said, I'm so grateful that you're doing this show, and
thank you.
And I, because of some technical glitch, I wasn't able to get the first hour, so I kind of missed that. But what I have heard has been just incredible and terrific, and I think it's helping to get the point across, not just to people who may not know, but I think it's going to help people who are going through it. You know, when I was in the middle of it, I didn't. I don't know why, but I didn't immerse myself in this thing. I didn't go to groups. I didn't talk to other people. I didn't even have a chance to listen to a show like this.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had, I think it would have made me feel a lot better.
Thank you, sir. Well, let me ask you this. Like you said, now that you've been on the other side of the fence, what advice would you give a caregiver that's getting ready to go through this, whose family members are showing signs, already been diagnosed? What can you tell them to prepare for?
Well, the first thing I would say is that it's a lot more deep than just forgetting stuff, just forgetting who you are, and not being able to feed yourself maybe, or being incontinent. It's even more than that, because it takes somebody to this completely different place. This isn't reality anymore. It's not a reality that we know or can relate to, and once the person is incapable of communicating, that means that they can't tell you what's wrong. That means they can't tell you what hurts. They can't tell you what they need. So now you're in a situation where you have to decide what it is this person needs. Do they need a single room in a nursing home, or a double room? Do they need a glass of water now? Do they need to eat?
Right.
It's very difficult because you have when you ask them, for example, are you in pain? They may say yes, but they mean no, or they may say no, but they mean yes. They may not even feel pain like we feel pain, and so I think that a person caring for a loved one has to realize that it's not a perfect world, and there are no perfect caregivers, and you can't predict what a person with Alzheimer's is going to need at every given moment.
Right.
And you're going to make some mistakes.
Right.
And you're going to feel bad about that. And you're going to feel bad about that for a long, long time, but you have to put that in a place that you can accept, because guilt is a bad thing, and
right.
you don't want to live with that guilt, and you have to forget that,
right. because
you're doing the best you can, and as long as you approach it with love and with the idea that you want to do what's best, then I think you can't look back on what you might have done wrong.
Okay, that's a great answer. Yeah, definitely. And let me ask you this. With you seeing your mom go through it, and as you was watching her go through it, did you ever say to yourself, what would I do, or how would I face this if I got this diagnosis?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Well, yeah, I'll tell you, though, I would say that one of the most important things that people should do is, because, if you're going to get this, if it's going to happen, and if you live a long time, if you live a good, long life, and you reach the age of 80, 90 years old, chances are pretty high you're going to have dementia or Alzheimer's. It's really rare that you don't if you get into those upper ages. And come on, we all want to live a long life, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing to do is, if you realize that at some point you're not going to be able to tell people what you want and what you need to tell people now, particularly your family and your sons and daughters, your husbands and wives. You have to let them know now what it is you're going to want in your later years.
Right.
You need a living will. You need to be able to write this down. No, I don't want a feeding tube. No, I don't want, life-saving measures. No, I don't want to, when I reach that point, to be poked and prodded and all this stuff. Because if you don't say that and write it down, and then it's up to your sons and daughters or husbands and wives to
just
figure it
guess
out for you, and that's a really, really hard thing to do.
Right. But I mean, in a situation with you taking care of your mom, and at the end of the day, right now, do you feel like you done everything the way that you should have done it, and do you feel good about the outcome of you being a caregiver for her?
Whoa, that's a good question. I would say I'm not there yet, Cogee. I'm not really there. I can say honestly that I tried to do everything right.
Okay.
But I can't say that everything I did was right, because it didn't work out that way. We didn't take the pain away.
Right.
We didn't take the spasms away. We didn't take the contracture away. She had that until really the last I would say, the last week of her life, and maybe actually 2 weeks. She actually lived 2 weeks. I was there the whole time, and I watched her take her last breath. Wow. And she lived 2 weeks in her bed, being turned, every hour, and as you're supposed to, without anything to eat or drink for 2 weeks, which was just, remarkable. The staff at the nursing home were astounded by it.
Right.
But did I do everything right? No, I did not do everything right. Did I try and do everything right? Yes.
Right. But when I asked you that question, Robert, what I really meant, you know what I'm saying, is that in your heart, even though you didn't know and you was learning going along the way, do you feel good about everything that you was able to do for her? Because this is kind of like going out to everybody over the airwaves that's working with, Alzheimer's family member right now, and they might be down on themselves, or they might feel a certain way. And I want you to come in on this too, Demeter. You know what I'm saying?
I hear you. I understand what you're saying.
Right.
No.
You get what I'm saying now.
Yes,
I just want.
Absolutely. No, this is like, I think, the most honorable, wonderful thing you can do. Okay. And it doesn't mean you have to do it perfectly, but just to do it, to do this thing. I think, and I think this is, I think this is what's going to have to be done in the future. I think people are going to have to do this more and more, for their loved ones, because, it's just, there's going to be a lot of it, and there's going to be so much of it. We can't rely on the government to pay for it all. So people are going to have to volunteer and help each other, and it's going to have to be a community, and more and more people are going to have to become caregivers, and to be, and at the end of the day, it makes you feel pretty good that you've done a good thing.
That's right. I hear you, because that's how it was when I took care of, my father before he passed away. I mean, you just do all you can do, you know what I'm saying, to just love them and let them see you caring for them every day. At least in their last days going out, they saw you battling and pulling and tugging and changing clothes and giving them baths and doing everything all the way till they close their eyes. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And that's, but I want to ask you something real quick too, Robert. How do you deal with the death of your mom every day? How do you get up and keep moving? Because even with me, I carry this like a tattoo every day. I get up. I'm still learning to deal with it, and I haven't came to grips with it. So how do you deal with it?
I'm the same way, Cogee. It's there all the time.
Okay.
It's changed me. It has changed me, and it's always there. But like you, I think of what you're doing now with this show, and
right.
what you do with the other show that you have. And here you are doing this really good thing, right. And so it puts it in that perspective. This loss that you had that changed you has maybe driven you in this direction, which is such a good direction. Right. And it's not just good for you, but it's good for a lot of people. Right. And I feel like even I didn't want to write the book. I didn't set out to write it, but I did write it, and now I find that it's helping people. And maybe that means that my mother, who raised me, is helping people. You know what I mean? She's right. helping people, like your father is helping people through you, because you're out doing these good things.
That's right.
And so that helps me deal with it,
Right, I understand. I definitely know where you're coming from. Miss Peaches, chime in.
what BG just said really touches my heart, because that's a really deep statement. And, Cogee, you've been very, very forthright with your listeners and your audience and letting them know the struggles that you endure.
Yeah, I'm broken. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. I'm broken, but you know how they say that term, like a functioning alcoholic? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Even though I'm broken, but I still can function to help other people move forward. But you know what I'm saying? I can't say that I can't help myself. I'm going to say I'm learning to deal with myself, because I am helping myself every day I get up and do these shows. I know that, right, but I'm learning to deal with myself. I'm learning that, okay, Cogee, you done everything you could do. But God's will, two things we're going to do in this world. We're going to live and we're going to die. There's no way around that. You know what I'm saying? He lived and he passed away. Those was the two things that God said it was going to happen, and we all going to face it one day. You know what I'm saying? But it's the people that you leave behind that felt they was fighting to help you beat it, and you lost, and they lost, and I feel I lost too. You get what I'm saying? Okay. And that's why I asked, Robert, that question. Like, at the end of the day, when you look back, do you go, well, I done everything I could do, and I don't think it's nothing else I could have done that would have changed the game. So that's a real deep subject. But let me ask you this real quick, Robert, before I break you out. With the baby boomers right now in the world, and we living even longer now, do you really feel like this is a serious national problem that we're going to have with Alzheimer's?
I do. I mean, I don't think we're prepared for it. I don't think we're prepared economically. I don't think we're prepared culturally. I don't think we're prepared medically for it. I certainly wasn't prepared for it. I mean, if we were prepared for it, wouldn't somebody have said, Bob, this is going to happen with your mother, and I want you to be prepared for it. It could go this way, and if it goes this way, I just want you to know this is the way it could go, and there's not much we can do about it. Nobody told me that. I mean, nobody told me that. So I'm thinking that, if I don't remember how many people in the next 10 years they said are going to have Alzheimer's, but it's a lot, and the cost of care is just staggering. So unless there's some kind of shift in the way we think about this, how are we going to contend with it? And I do think that people are, you're going to see, at least I hope. Remember that guy that I was telling you about before from London who took care of his mom? I got an email from him just the other day, and he said that he was in contact with one of the readers of his book. And this guy who was in contact with him, his mother had Alzheimer's. And the guy who wrote the book, they got to talking, actually went out and took care of this guy's mother for a day so he could go out and have some free time. Mm-hmm. And I thought, wow, that is amazing. That is really giving up of yourself. And I think that's what we're going to have to do in this country. We're going to have to do that for each other. We're going to have to do it in our neighborhoods and in our community, on your streets. People are going to have to, in their buildings, people are going to have to do that for one another.
Yeah, you're definitely right on that. Let me ask you something. With you going through this, and you wrote your book, and you're a very spiritual guy, I know that for a fact. How did you get through this, and I know it was very difficult for you, and how would you explain it a little bit, for anybody that's dealing with this to kind of just dump it out of the system a little bit, in a positive way?
Well, I think, you were saying it before about when you were talking about caring for your father and how good that made you feel, and I think taking it to the next level is I feel as if, my mom, she, before she got sick, before she was diagnosed, she volunteered in a nursing home for years, for like 15 years she was a volunteer in a nursing home. And then, of course, she got sick and she couldn't do anything like that, and then she ended up in a nursing home herself with me taking care of her and all this. But now I feel, spiritually, that she, even beyond the grave, she's helping people,
Right.
I wouldn't have written this book without her, and yet I wrote it, and it's helping people. Maybe not a huge amount of people, but it's helping people.
Yes,
and
it is.
Think about what you're doing. I mean,
thank you.
You're helping people, and so your father actually is helping people from beyond the grave, really, through you.
Yes, sir.
I see that spiritually, and my father always used to say when I asked him, I always asked him about the afterlife, because when I was a little kid, I remember asking him about the afterlife, and he said, I can't answer that, Robbie. He always called me Robbie. He said, I can't answer that. He said, but I will tell you that one thing for a fact is you live on in the hearts and minds of the people you touch. You're
definitely right on that. And Robert, I definitely want to thank you for being on the show today. You was a great guest. And, can you tell people your website real quick?
Well, of course, you can find the book on Amazon.com, but I also put up a little website for my mother, and it's Alzheimer'sMemoir.com. So www.Alzheimer'sMemoir.com.
Okay. Robert, stay on the phone. I don't want you to hang up. I got a few more questions for you real quick. And everybody, get ready for our third hour. This has been very, very powerful. Alzheimer's, you think you know, you have no idea. Title of the show today. Let's help people, let's educate people, and let's keep sharing love. We'll be right back. Get ready for our third hour. You're listening to Conversations with Cogee.